Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Guillermo Toledo. Toledo was shot and killed on Monday, October 24th, 2016, in the 2600 block of East 133rd Street in Willowbrook, according to LA County coroner records. Francisco Munoz Virgen was subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. Around 2014, Brenda was introduced to Alberto Martinez, a death row inmate and a right-hand man or influential associate of the Mexican Mafia. Brenda and Martinez started a romantic relationship soon after they met. Brenda also began working as a secretary for Martinez and the Mexican Mafia. Brenda received and transferred money and made phone calls for Martinez. Around June 2016, Brenda met victim Guillermo Toledo, another gang member. After they started dating, the victim tried to convince Brenda to end her relationship with Martinez because she could get in trouble working for him. Martinez was unhappy about Brenda's relationship with the victim, and he often sent men to Brenda's home to check on her and the victim. Brenda and Michael Haney testified to different versions of the events leading up to the victim's murder. Haney's account: on October 23, 2016, Martinez contacted Haney, a former prisoner who continued to work favors for Martinez. Martinez asked Haney to confront the victim with defendant and Victor Soto. Martinez wanted the three men to beat up the victim. According to Haney, Martinez never asked Haney to kill the victim. Later that day, Haney and Soto met with defendant in Pacoima. The three men drove together to Brenda's home near Compton. While in the car, defendant showed Haney the gun that defendant was carrying. At Brenda's home, Haney, defendant, Soto, Brenda, and the victim talked outside the front door. One of the men told the victim that Martinez wanted to speak to him on the phone. The victim became upset and Haney tried to calm him down. At some point during their conversation, a car parked in front of Brenda's home. The victim approached the car and interacted with someone inside before returning to Brenda's home. The victim went inside the home for a few moments, during which time Haney heard what he believed was the victim chambering around inside a gun. When the victim went back outside, he kept his hand inside his pocket. Haney told Soto and defendant that he believed the victim had a gun. The victim eventually agreed to speak to Martinez over the phone. When their conversation ended, the victim told Brenda to go inside the home. Once Brenda was inside, Haney put his hand on the victim's arm to prevent the victim from pulling out his gun. Soto then punched the victim and defendant pulled out a gun. Brenda returned to the porch and tried to shield the victim and pull him back inside the home. Defendant then shot the victim in the leg before trying to take the victim's gun. When Haney saw a bystander watching the altercation, he ran to the car. While at the car, Haney heard a second gunshot. When he looked back at Brenda's home, he saw Soto standing over the victim's body while pointing a gun at his head. Haney saw defendant remove a gun from the victim's pocket before they fled the scene. Brenda's account: on the evening of October 23, 2016, Brenda and the victim were hanging out at her home when Haney and defendant arrived unannounced. The group talked in front of Brenda's front door for several minutes before Soto joined. At some point during their conversation, the victim told Brenda to go inside the home. Shortly after Brenda went inside, she heard what sounded like a body slamming against the wall. When Brenda went back outside, she saw Haney, defendant, and Soto hitting the victim. As she tried to pull the victim inside the home, she saw defendant pointing a gun at him. Brenda tried to grab the gun and asked defendant not to shoot the victim before defendant pointed the gun at her. He threatened to shoot Brenda if she didn't move. Defendant then handed the gun to Soto, who pointed it at the victim's head. Defendant nodded and Soto shot the victim in the head. The victim later died of his injuries. The people charged defendant, Soto, and Haney with the victim's murder and assault with a semi-automatic firearm against Brenda. The people alleged firearm and prior conviction and gang enhancements. At the first trial, which concluded in January 2020, the jury deadlocked on all charges as to each defendant, with the jurors split almost equally between votes of guilty and not guilty on each charge. The court declared a mistrial. Before defendant and Soto were retried, Haney reached a plea agreement with the people on an assault charge with force likely to produce great bodily injury. In exchange for the plea deal, Haney agreed to testify at defendant and Soto's second trial. The second trial was held in late 2022. The jury found defendant guilty of second-degree murder while finding him not guilty of first-degree murder. The jury deadlocked as to the assault charge against defendant in count 2 and did not reach a verdict as to the firearm enhancement allegation. As to Soto, the jury found him not guilty of first-degree murder while deadlocking on the remaining charges. At the people's request, the court dismissed the assault charge against defendant and the court sentenced defendant to 15 years to life in state prison. On September 26, 2024, Alberto Martinez was stabbed to death while incarcerated at Calipatria State Prison. Guillermo Toledo was 31 years old at the time of death.